Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all good? I hope so. Y'all listen. I want to talk about the episode from Pole to Pole, the documentary with Will Smith when he went to the Pacific Islands. Okay, so Will met with John Aney. So John is a local marine ecologist. John said that they are an ancient ocean people, and the ocean has always provided for them, but with climate change causing rising sea levels and extreme weather, that has destroyed their land, their homes. But he feels like there is a way to save their land, and that is by embracing their history. So they held an ancient ceremony called Vala, and that ceremony signified that the old reef area is closed until the fish return. They put up a tree, which is a signal to others to not fish in that area. The Vala ceremony was one that was part of John's people's tradition. It hadn't been done in 100 years. He brought it back to life, and that makes that area a sacred place. He said without healthy coral reefs, they won't have anything. Then John introduces Will to Robert. Robert is from Tench Island. He came to John to ask him for help because his island was hit by a king tide in 2008. He said it was wave after wave. It lasted for a long time, and 3/4 of the island flooded. The next night, Navy Patrol rescued them and took them somewhere else, and they were gone from their island for 2 years. He said he felt like a refugee. Robert said if another king tide was to hit again, they'll lose everything. So Robert really wants John to come to see if there's anything that can be done. And John says that a king tide is what they call the highest tide of the year. And he has seen king tide waves wipe out entire communities right in front of him. So on their way to Tench, John tells Will how important the health of the coral reefs are. It's a big part of their survival, and a big part of his work is to monitor the coral reefs. Then he sends Will down there to bring back one of the boxes that they use to monitor the coral reefs. Will tries to explain that he's not an ocean guy, and John was like, I don't care about that, just get down there and get that box. So when he jumped in, it was so beautiful, and I was like, Will, this looked like Finding Nemo. So they make one last stop before going to Tench. They went to pick up Mary. Mary is a linguist, and she specializes in remote languages. She was at a festival called a Sing Sing, and that's when tribal groups show off their customs and their unique languages. Mary says language is the core that keeps people together, and if part of that core goes away, a part of their identity also passes away. She said that every 2 weeks a language is lost. Will, he had an epiphany. He said that helped him understand the plight of black people in America with the loss of individual languages, which is like a historical tether that gets severed to your bloodline and DNA. All of that contributes to your history, is important to your people. Mary said that the language in Tench is a very endangered language, and they're trying to save the land and the history. So when they make it to Tench, Will asked about the population, and there were less than 100 people. So while Mary was meeting with the people, John was examining the island to see how they live. That's going to help him determine if they will be able to survive another king tide. Robert says he loves his life on Tench. He said the island has provided everything for them, but he is worried if another tide comes through that they will lose everything. He also showed them how far into the island it flooded after the king tide. He said that the salt water also got into their well. He says when the water spoils and gets salty, they have no other choice but to drink it because that's their only resource for water. So then John and Will go off to examine the coral reef in the area, and that reef is the island. It's like a column that the island sits on. Even though the reef is healthy, the island sits low. It sits too low, which means if another king tide does come in, the island may not be there in the next couple of years. Unfortunately, John can't find a solution for them, and that makes him very emotional. The only other option is for them to move, but he's worried that they will lose their identity and their culture if they leave because they have always identified themselves as Tench Islanders. They make it back to the island, and John lets them know that his best suggestion is for them to start thinking about leaving. Robert said they can't accept relocation. His father says that the fear is if they evacuate, they'll lose their history and their identity. John says to save them as a people, there is at least one thing they can do now, and that was to help them preserve their language so that there will be something for the kids of the next generation to hold on to. Robert says that Tench has his own language, but only a few people speak it, like his father. Mary asked his father his name, and he said that his name was Norman Jonah, and he's from Enusi. Mary asked what was Enusi, and he said that it was the name of the island. So Will wanted to know, why were they calling it Tench? If it's Enusi, why are we calling it Tench? Robert says that a lieutenant was passing by. He sighted the island and renamed it Tench. Will says, we're calling it Enusi. Ain't no more Tench. Enusi. In my research, I found that as a gesture of personal friendship and it being customary in naval tradition for officers during that time, it was to name newly discovered or charted landmarks after fellow officers or friends. So during Lieutenant Philip Gitley King's voyage to Norfolk Island to England in 1790, he decided to rename the island Tench after his friend Watkin Tench. And the problem lies with it not being newly discovered land. It already had natives on it. They always think they discovered something. Child, one thing a colonizer gonna do is colonize. So Mary asked how many people were using Enusi. Robert said there were only about 6. Norman did speak the language with his grandmother, but he has forgotten a lot of it. Through Mary's background, she knows that when a language is severely endangered, it's going to take a bit of digging. So she started with simple words like head, eyes, beach, wave, things like that. She was recording and writing it down, and his son Robert, he was also writing the words down as well. Mary says her job is to try and put the story of the Enusi people back together. And you could see the joy in Robert's eyes as he was able to hear his dad remember some of the words of his people. Will said that reminds him of being with his grandmother. He said he wished he remembered more of the words and songs from his grandmother, but a lot of that was lost when she passed. And he said when you don't preserve it, you lose it. They also recorded them singing as well, and it was lovely, especially seeing the kids smile and sing, the mothers rocking back and forth. It was like it was taking them back down memory lane. And just watching that episode, it shows how important it is to sit with your parents, your grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, and just ask them their stories. Record their stories, their voices. If they have little sayings that you enjoy, record them, keep records. Because like they said, if you don't preserve it, you're going to lose it. No matter where you're from, people will say, oh, I like your accent. Oh, I like your accent. Well, if somebody tell me that they like my accent, baby, I don't think I got no accent, baby. Like I told somebody in the comments, I am a Memphis-sipian. Okay, that's what you hear. You may even have little words or phrases that you use in your family or around your friends and your community. And people be like, what? What did you just say? What is that? What are you even talking about? Save it, record it, write it down. That's your culture. But listen, get down in the comments and let me know what you think if you watched the episode. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's pretty cool. And I'll talk to y'all later.